Coinbase, where he then went on to become the first and he's now the former CTO of that organization. He has invested in the future. He was a general partner at Andreessen Horowitz, that giant of technology investing out of Silicon Valley. But what I am most excited about is his book about the network state, how to start a country. It is available free online. Everybody in this room should definitely download, get your hands on it, give it a read, but he's going to give you a little bit of his vision up here on stage right now. So let's put it together. Let's make some noise for our keynote of the morning. It's Balaji Srinivasan. Balaji, let's do this.
All right. Just a mic check. Fire Gary Gensler. Can I get a fire Gary Gensler? Okay, everybody. So, if we had asked Gary or the Fed or anybody else for permission, we wouldn't have been able to start this entire space, start this entire industry. And so the next step, in my view, is not simply starting new companies and new communities and new currencies, but new cities and even new countries, and that's what the network state is about. So basically, what I'm going to try and give is a 5 or 10 minute overview of this, but it's sort of like describing a blockchain. You know, it's a complicated thing. You need to kind of go and read the code base to really get the scope of it. So I've written a free book. It's online at thenetworkstate.com. It's being updated. We'll release a video version of that as well soon. But let me just try and make the quick case that starting new countries is actually possible, preferable, and profitable. So why is it possible? Okay. Basically, over the last 20 years, within the lives of most of the people in this room or so, you've seen new companies like Google arise from a garage, and new communities like Facebook come out of a dorm room, and new currencies like Bitcoin come from a white paper. And these are not small things. These have touched the lives of billions and billions of people worldwide. Just about, you know, every single educated person, or, you know, probably every person has heard of Google or Facebook or thereabouts now if you've got a smartphone, and most people have heard about Bitcoin as well. And so the question is, can we take it one more step? Or is that the end of the line? Is the last thing that we do is just slinging coins and tokens all day, which would be nice, but it's, you know, we can do even more than that. And that's a recipe that I think I'm going to propose, which is how to start a new country, this concept of the network state. So what does that even look like? Well, on a map, just to get a visual of it, a network state is a decentralized country, just like Bitcoin is a decentralized currency. So it's something that's got the population and the income and the real estate footprint of a legacy nation state, but it's just distributed around the world and networked together. Much like, let's say, the islands of Indonesia in this area are a bunch of physical pieces of land that are separated by ocean. The islands of a network state are physical pieces of land separated by internet. Okay, but they think of themselves as one country. Conceptually, it's a psychological unification. And you know, the thing about this is it answers the question of where do you start a new country? It's everywhere and nowhere. It's decentralized in the sense of where do you start a new currency? That crazy concept of decentralized, everybody here gets that. We've kind of shown that that works over the last decade. And in this example, I've shown, you know, a 1 million person network state, but how do you actually get to 1 million people? How do you know, what's a 0 to 1? So in this example, let's say you start with a Japanese guy, another Satoshi, okay, single person in Japan, one person, you know, annual income, square meters are their apartment, okay? And they recruit people around the world, 17 people, and then 172, and then 1,729, and they start crowdfunding buildings and apartments and cul-de-sacs and start co-living together as like a crypto tribe. And this kind of already happens. We see hacker houses, we see people buying property together and so on, especially because real estate prices have become, you know, so unaffordable. And the thing about this is there's no upper limit. It's just your ability to coordinate and scale. You get to 17,000 and 172,000 and eventually 1.7 million people. And there's a smooth path from one person to a million, just like there was for Facebook or Google. The difference being that these are not customers, but they think of themselves as digital citizens. And that's kind of the next level, right? In the 90s, we talked about eyeballs. People would just look at the internet. In the 2000s, we talked about daily active users. You're engaged on a daily basis, right? By the 2010s, you started talking about holders who had a significant chunk of their net worth in digital entities. And now I think in the 2020s, the next step is full digital citizenship, where you think of your digital community, your network, as actually being your primary identity, and your offline state membership is your secondary identity. In the same way that you spend much of your work time online, and much of your money is made online, and much of your friends are made online, those are actually your neighbors. If you think about, who are the last 100 people you've communicated with or transacted with, they're probably not within a 10-mile radius of your home, right? So your network is actually your true neighbors. It's a very deep kind of thing that is going to impact politics. And the thing is, I mentioned 1 million. Why is that kind of a magic number that puts us within a country range? It's actually not that big for a social network. And the answer is actually that most countries are small countries. Okay? If you define a country as a member of the UN, which is an operational definition that's got its merits to it, if you define a country as a member of the UN, most countries actually have less than 1 million people. Many countries have less than 100,000 people. Okay? Singapore's only about 6-something million people. So the thing about this is, sorry, maybe slightly misspoke. Most countries have less than 10 million people, and many have less than 1 million. And only a few countries are greater than 100 million in size. That's some of the ones you think about, like the USA or Brazil or something like that. But most countries are small countries, and moreover, most people don't know this, lots of new countries have actually arisen over the past 70 years. During a period where we think of the number of countries as static, right after World War II, there were about 40, 50 something countries recognized by the UN. But as the British Empire and the French Empire and the Soviet Empire broke down, those are like, atomic fission events, and we got a bunch of new states arising from them. And for the last 20 or 30 years, since the fall of the Soviet Union, we've been mostly flat. It's been a period of cartographic stasis. But the currency graph looked like this country graph and then started going vertical about 5-10 years ago. And I think the country graph is going to as well. The third point is that cryptocurrencies already rank with fiat currencies. This is a fun site. You guys all know CoinMarketCap. This is fiatmarketcap.com. And in this screenshot over here, we see Bitcoin between the Turkish lira and the Chilean peso. Okay, so this cloud entity, this cryptocurrency, ranks with these land entities, these fiat currencies. So putting those points together, that most countries are small countries, and that many new countries have actually been started. We've gone from 40 something to almost 190 something, and that cloud entities can rank with fiat entities. We put that all together and we ask, could crypto countries rank with fiat countries? If you take not the order of currencies by their market cap, but the order of countries by their population, okay? If you could build a 1.7 million person network state, that would be somewhere between Latvia and Bahrain on the map, okay? So it'd be global and decentralized, so it wouldn't have one physical location. Again, just like Bitcoin, it's everywhere and nowhere, and that's actually its strength. It's set up to be resistant to and transcending of the legacy state and its apparatus, and that's the collision that we have. But something like this is totally possible. It's, in a sense, just a physical social network. A social network that takes physical form. Cloud first, land last, but not land never. So, and this is kind of what this network state map looks like in a chart. Now, one might ask, okay, you might be able to build a large social network, but people have done that. It still isn't a country. It doesn't have law enforcement rights or things like that. And the thing is that with sufficient traction, I argue, you can attain diplomatic recognition. you won't necessarily get like the USA or China to recognize you at the beginning. Diplomatic recognition is a continuum. Even Taiwan can't get, countries to recognize it, right? But what you can do is you can start inking a bunch of deals, and you think of diplomatic recognition as being a year or multi-decade long process. So some examples of deals have already been done. For example, Tuvalu has done a deal, that's a country of Tuvalu. GoDaddy did a deal with Tuvalu for the .tv domain name. And Tesla did a deal with Nevada for the Gigafactory. And of course, Bitcoin is now the national currency of El Salvador. And there's many examples like this. Ethereum was adopted by Wyoming and Tennessee for their DAO law. And Bitcoin is the salary of the mayors of Miami and New York. And Colombia leased its .co name to GoDaddy. So the point is that the land is already doing deals with the cloud. Okay, countries and cities and states are already signing deals with companies, and they're using cryptocurrencies. So why can't they sign deals with crypto communities? Right? Of course they could, to get special economic zones, to get land rights, with enough money and with enough cohesion and with enough persistence, recognizing that you might be laughed at the first time, the second time, the fifth time, the 10th time, but you knock on the door and the 11th time, just like BlackRock a few years ago was saying Bitcoin was money laundering, and now they say actually it's this amazing thing and we're going to launch an ETF. Just sheer persistence and being dogged and in the game, and then knocking again 2, 3, 5 years later, you may be able to get something. So sufficient traction leads to diplomatic recognition. And if you put that together, that's my argument as to why starting new countries is possible, but why is it preferable? Why do we even need these things? Well, Gary Gensler is certainly one reason, but it's broader than that. It's basically the coalition that's behind new countries is, in my view, the same as the one behind cryptocurrencies. It's the powerless and the power user. It's the person who's just trying to hang on to a bank account and the person who's trying to redefine what a bank account even is. It's like a U-curve. It's not the normie. It's not the person who's going to Starbucks and swiping a card. Crypto isn't really that much of an improvement for that, but it's really a huge improvement for people who are being deplatformed or people who are building the next financial platform. And that's the same thing for countries. Basically, if you are in a decent country and it kind of works for you, okay, fine. But many people around the world are experiencing inflation, riots, food shortages, that type of stuff. It's not being covered that much, but inflation is a problem for rich countries. It's a serious problem in poor countries, okay? So the powerless wants an option to these failed states, an alternative. And the power user is the same kind of person who's a pioneer, who explored the frontier, who the same person who radiated out of Africa or immigrated to America or got to the moon. That's a frontier mentality, right? You want to push what the limits even are. Can we have better regulations? Can't you have a pro-technology state? I think we can. We just have to set that as a goal. And the third, last but not least, is why is it profitable? Why is it economically feasible? So this is like a fun chart where I've put nation states, social networks, and hypothetical network states on the same chart. And ARPU is average revenue per user. And ARPU front/C is average revenue per user per capita. So in the lower right corner there, what you see are the social networks. So that's like WeChat and so Meta and WeChat and TikTok and so on, at billions of users or hundreds of millions of users. And on the y-axis their revenue is not that much per user. It's like maybe $10 per, but if you have 4 billion users, that's like $40 billion per year. Conversely, in the upper left corner, you have the small nation states like Estonia, like Singapore. They've got a small population, 1 to 5 million people, but they've got a large annual income in the sense of tax revenue from their residents in the tens of thousands of dollars per person. And in kind of the upper right, you see the USA and China, and that's why they're the two superpowers, because they have the largest population and income. And so that's why they're fighting. It's kind of like the Pareto optimal, sort of curve. And what's interesting is where network states are, or could be, which is in this niche that we haven't really thought about that much in tech. Not
millions or billions of people globally, but maybe on the order of a few million people, but you monetize much more on a per person level. It's like a Discord subscription of hundreds of dollars per year, and then it's rent in person at thousands of dollars per year. And I think these can grow to be at least as large as the top left corner, and maybe larger than that over time, because there's no upper bound on the scale of these networks, but you actually start focusing on the strength of the network in terms of the value it's giving to users. Now, in a sense, this is just like materializing all the DAOs that people have into the physical world, getting people to not just hold the same currency, but actually, co-live and build things together, and so on and so forth. And certainly not every DAO will be suitable for that, but some will be. And those, I think, will be some of the most persistent DAOs, because that's really what a country is. That's why a currency holds its value. Those folks, do something together. So that's why I think starting new countries is possible, preferable, and profitable. The book is online at thenetworkstate.com. You can just read chapter 1, and that'll be a 5-minute version, a little bit longer than this, but goes into more detail on the practicalities of how you do it. And that's it. So thank you very much.
Balaji, great job. Once again, he said it, I said it. Get that book, get it on your screen because you can download it for free and check it out. This is how we plan the future.